Madam President, news of the Qatari government gifting Donald Trump a $400 million private jet to use as Air Force One is so corrupt that even Putin would give a double take. This is not just naked corruption, it is also a grave national security threat. So in light of the deeply troubling news of a possible Qatari-funded Air Force One, and the reports that the Attorney General personally signed off on this clearly unethical deal, I am announcing a hold on all DOJ political nominees until we get more answers.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so as you can see from that intro, Chuck Schumer is pissed. He's livid about this. Of course, the left is absolutely livid about this. And you guys, yeah, we're going to talk about this for a minute. We got some Lawrence Donald clips coming in, and we're going to talk about this. You guys might be surprised where I land on this one, but, you know, right off the jump, let's get this out of the way. Of course, it's on the up and up, right? Donald Trump isn't getting gifted a freaking 747 for crying out loud. I know that's what the corporate media and everybody's saying. Oh, Qatar gave Donald Trump a 747, blah, blah, blah. Look at all this corruption going on. Yeah, hang on there just a second, my guy. Hang on there just a second. No, it was gifted to the Department of Defense, not to Donald Trump. In other words, right, if this was a gift to Donald Trump, right, I would be up in arms about this. Like, what in the F are you doing, right? We're going to get to my opinions on this, but let's get the facts out of the way right quick. Okay, so if that were the case, I would be pissed. Let's go. However, it's going to the United States. It's a gift from Qatar to the United States. Now, hang on just a second. Like, let me know down in the comment section right quick, how do you guys pronounce Qatar? Do you pronounce it Qatar? I generally go back and forth between the two, whatever sounds right at the time, right? But, you know, the only problem with pronouncing it Qatar is when it goes plural, if you will. I guess that's plural. When you got to say Qatari. Yeah, Qatari doesn't sound right, does it? So I think the proper pronunciation is Qatar, but Qatar sounds better for some reason. But anyway, getting back out of the weeds off of that one. Okay, so it's a gift to the United States, to the Department of Defense, essentially the military, right? Okay, so this would be a major problem if it was a gift to Donald Trump, but it's not a gift to Donald Trump, is it? No. As a matter of fact, it's not. It's a gift to the United States. Once again, if Donald Trump were able to take this thing home and use it, yes, we'd have a major problem with that. Now, I do have a problem with this. As a matter of fact, the optics of this does not look good whatsoever. Now, getting the nonsense that the left excuses are, you know, that, oh, this is kleptocracy and all that other crap, which is just garbage, because it's not. But it doesn't look good, does it? No, it doesn't look good at all. This is kind of a bad move. However, you know, Donald Trump did secure $600 billion in investment from Saudi Arabia. I know those aren't the same thing, but they kind of are, right? Right, now let's get back to this. Now, Qatar is not a friend of the United States. Let's get that out of the way right quick. They fund all kinds of nonsense in the United States that, yeah, we don't kind of like how much money they're dumping into colleges, for instance, into social media, for crying out loud. They dump loads of money into these places to push a narrative, to push a Qatari-friendly narrative, if you will. I don't like this whatsoever. Now, getting into the broader issues of this jet, this thing, right, this makes no sense at all, because they're going to have to take this thing and strip it down to bare bones. It's a 12-year-old jet to begin with. They're going to have to strip it down, so it's going to have to be completely overhauled. And it's going to cost probably about the same as a brand new 747, because they're going to have to strip it all the way down to the bare bones. Put whole new wiring in here because national security issues. That's where I agree with Chuck Schumer. This is a national security issue right here. But the corporate press, or Lawrence O'Donnell specifically, is just lying about this, just like Chuck Schumer was.
Well, absolutely no one in the world was surprised today when the most corrupt president in history agreed to the biggest payoff in history. And because he is the stupidest president in history, he agreed to that payoff from a Hamas-supporting dictator publicly. And to double underline his stupidity, he publicly said that only a stupid person, that was his phrase, a stupid person, would refuse to take the biggest payoff in history from a Hamas-supporting dictator. The biggest payoff is literally, physically the biggest, the largest 747 that Boeing makes. It is owned by the Emir of Qatar, who wants to just give it to Donald Trump as a gift, just a gift from one person who has no idea about any of the words written in the Constitution of the United States to an American president with a severe case of constitutional dementia. The founders of the United States of America specifically imagined this very scenario before they could imagine anyone other than birds actually flying. Not, the plain version of the scenario, but the other version of the scenario, the gift version. In the Constitution that Donald Trump and the Emir of Qatar have never read, it says that the president absolutely cannot, quote, accept any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Okay, they didn't specifically say an emir, but king and emir are both four-letter words meaning exactly the same kind of guy.
Okay, so outside of that being some of the most nonsensical drivel I think I've ever heard in my entire life, because I always have to say that after a Lawrence O'Donnell clip, coming out and speaking some of the most nonsensical drivel I think I've ever heard in my entire life is going to sound stupid, right? Okay, come on, let's get over this for a second. This is not a gift to Donald Trump. The corporate press is lying to you about this. However, once again, like I was saying, this isn't a good look at all, simply due to the fact you want to break all this down, right? The fact that they have to break all this down. Simple as that, right? Now, he did have a little bit of coherence in there when he was making his appeal to irrationality. Qatar, as a matter of fact, does support Hamas. That's where the leader of Hamas was spending his time after October 7th. Come on, Trump. I mean, what are we doing here? Seriously, this guy has problems. Not Trump. Talking about the Emir of Qatar. Why are we funding terrorists? This is one of the biggest funders of terrorism, like outside of Iran, as a matter of fact. Once again, folks, Qatar is not our friends. I understand foreign relations and trying to be on friendly terms with some of these people, but they use indentured servants. They use slaves, for crying out loud. I know it's a different culture, but that doesn't make slavery okay, for goodness sakes. It's insane. It really is, and this is definitely not a good look for the Trump administration. However, once again, combating the damn corporate press narrative on this, they're trying to make this a constitutional crisis of all constitutional crises. Oh, this is kleptocracy incarnate or something like that, when it's really not. It's a gift from one government to another government, for goodness sake. So let's get that out of the way. The corruption is nonsensical. It's just an excuse to bash Donald Trump. That's all that is. Just blatantly outright. It's just an excuse to bash Donald Trump. And I can't really stand arguments like that. They don't make any sense to me. They're nonsensical because, hang on, we're not looking at all the facts, are we? We're not looking at all the facts at all, as a matter of fact. But one fact for you, in case you was wondering, that is right. Inflation is lower than expected. Oh, the S&P 500 rallies back. Now, this is fascinating because, hang on, what was Lawrence O'Donnell saying? He was gnashing his teeth and screaming to the high heavens that, oh, the stock market crashed and your 401k is just in the gutter, blah, 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 blah. We all knew this was going to happen. We absolutely knew this was going to happen, including Lawrence O'Donnell.
The New York Times reports, quote, "It remains to be seen what agreements can be reached in future negotiations But the talks this weekend and the tariff chaos of the past month did not appear to generate any other immediate concessions from the Chinese other than a commitment to keep talking. That's right. The Chinese government offered Donald Trump zero, and Donald Trump took it. Donald Trump said, OK, zero is good enough for me to drop the tariffs. And so now the pointless and illegal Trump tariffs on Chinese products are down to 30% from the insane 145%. 30% is still a crazy level. It's a big enough tariff to kill American businesses and to make toys too expensive for parents this Christmas and to kill jobs in this country. The Yale Budget Lab says that the average cost of the tariffs per household are still going to be $2,800. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes tonight, rarely has an economic policy been repudiated as soundly and as quickly as President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, and by Trump's own hand. Witness the agreement Monday morning to scale back his punitive tariffs on China, his second major retreat in less than a week. As with last week's modest British agreement, the China deal is more surrender than victory. So after weeks of market turmoil, the economy is left with higher trade costs and greater uncertainty for business.
I promise I've got some news for you guys. It's some funny news. It's hilarious as hell. But, you know, Lawrence O'Donnell coming out saying that we got nothing. This is a retreat from Donald Trump. Is this how they're going to frame every single trade negotiation? Is, oh, this is a retreat? Donald Trump backs down? What do you mean by back down, by the way? And the blatant lies in that. As you can see from that headline right there, I'm not even going to read it because I'm sure you guys know how to read. Yeah, that is MSN claiming China backs off. As a matter of fact, yes, Trump also backed off. This is how trade negotiations go, folks. This is exactly how that works. But think about, the retreat narrative here for a second. Hang on, what did Lawrence O'Donnell say? The tariffs were still at 30%. They're 34%, but 30%. Let's just go with 30% because that's a nice round figure. Huh. Oh, and we didn't get any concessions from China, did we? Well, how come then their tariffs are 10%? We both agreed equally to back off 115% off of the tariffs. That's fascinating. Doesn't sound like a retreat to me, does it? Doesn't sound like Trump capitulating on his stupid and illegal tariffs, does it? No, it doesn't. It sounds like we still have the upper hand. Our tariffs are 30%. China's are 10%. What kind of deal is created unequal, essentially? What kind of deal maker goes in and makes a deal where our tariffs are 30% and another nation's tariffs are only 10%, a third of the cost? Now, you can make all the arguments in the world that you want, but I find that fascinating. I don't call that a retreat. They can frame that narrative however the hell they want to. And as a matter of fact, that's how they're framing it, as a loss. But is it really? And this is the problem with corporate press news. These people just lie for a living. They grift. They gaslight you into oblivion constantly on a daily basis. They take something that you may be, apprehensive a little bit about, and then they'll turn that up to 11 and just dive right on in. Oh, Donnie Two Dolls over here. You're not going to be able to afford Christmas gifts because of Donald Trump. It's insane. It really is. But let's get to something a little bit lighter on the stress, if you will. Something a little bit more. We need some levity. We'll put it that way. White House correspondents protest lack of wire reporters on Air Force One. Here we go, folks. And once again, I told everybody out there, I said it in a video a while back. Okay, with the AP, in case y'all forgot, we covered the news articles, as a matter of fact, two or three times. As a matter of fact, and the AP coming in and getting kicked out of these smaller press pool areas where Donald Trump was like, no, because the AP didn't want to change the name of the Gulf of America to the Gulf of America from the Gulf of Mexico, what it used to be, right? They didn't want to do that on their whatever, I forget what it's called, corporate press journalist handbook or whatever the hell it is. I forget the name of it right off the top, whatever, a style book, sorry. Took me a second. My brain works a little bit slowly, if you will, when it comes to memory recall, but it is what it is, folks. I have to live with that. But, choices and actions of my past. But anyway, what's fascinating, so they didn't want to change that. So Donald Trump says, no, you're not getting the privilege of coming to these, special events or whatever they are. And they sued the White House, and, one of these activist judges overturned the executive order stopping them from going to the... So now that the judge basically was trying to force the corporate press onto Air Force One and into these small, intimate settings where, the press generally go to, which Donald Trump wasn't kicking the press out at all, just the AP, and they sued. And when we covered that article, I said to everybody, I said, this is ridiculously stupid, because now this sets a precedent that, okay, technically under the definition of journalism, I am a journalist. Now, with this precedent set, I can go and request for a press pass to go into the White House. And if they don't allow me onto Air Force One to cover Donald Trump, then I can sue them under the freaking First Amendment, for goodness sakes, and they'll be forced to have to allow me onto these places. So what did I say? This is what's going to happen. They're going to have to rotate the corporate press outlets out. And that's exactly what we've got here, folks. And now they're pissed due to their own actions. Oh, I love it. It's like the AP is just walking through the freaking yard and stepped on that rake, and boom. The problem with it is right, stepping on a rake accidentally and getting smacked in the face, that's a tragedy, right? That's catastrophic for your nose, essentially. But when you know that rake is there, and you see that rake, and then, somebody just standing right by that rake says, hey, hang on, there's a rake, watch your step, and you step on that rake and it smacks you in the freaking nose anyway, that makes America's Funniest Home Videos, doesn't it? Or Ridiculousness, or whatever show with bloopers. That's what's going on with this. This is why I'm so elated about this. I'm so happy that the Associated Press was actually booted out, and now they got put on a rotating schedule of press outlets that get to cover Donald Trump on Air Force One and in these smaller, intimate settings. It's fascinating, y'all. This is a short story, and I know we're already kind of deep into the video because I wanted to talk about the insanity of Chuck Schumer and Lawrence O'Donnell. But let's get into this. Enough of my explaining, right? The group representing White House journalists said Monday it was disturbed that the Trump administration barred any wire service news reporters from traveling with the president on Air Force One to the Middle East. Now, what that sounds like right off the jump is, they kicked out all the press. They didn't allow any wire service. Hey, I wonder why they would phrase wire service. What they mean by that, they should have put corporate press outlets. That is right. That doesn't mean there was no press. They had a group of new media traveling with Donald Trump to the Middle East, so you guys still get your news. But that doesn't stop the corporate press. It's like they're ignoring new media. That's what we'll go ahead and call it, real media. That's what I call it, because it's the real news. It's not fake news. Not all the time. Of course, nobody's perfect, obviously. Some of these people, they have their own biases as well, and they get stuff wrong. But at least we know the political leanings of these people, right? We know the political leanings of the corporate press, but they come off as centrist. They come off as, independent, unbiased news. But as we see all the time, and already with this news article, that they are very biased, folks. No reporters from the Associated Press, Bloomberg, or Reuters were on the plane, where presidents often take questions from traveling members of the press. Once again, framing this thing out, right? This is funny as hell. Framing this thing out as if there was actually no reporters at all on this airplane. Because they said no reporters from the Associated Press, Bloomberg, or Reuters, as if those are the only three corporate press outlets. There's many more than that, as a matter of fact. Their reports are distributed quickly to thousands of news outlets and millions of readers throughout the world every day. So all have equal access to coverage of the presidency, the White House Correspondents Association said in a statement. Hang on just a second. Every single one of the new media, they post pretty much the same thing. We all have equal access to X. We all have equal access to Facebook or Meta, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, any other social media platform, for goodness sakes. And these people, they post their news all over the dang place, just like the corporate press does. So what they're trying to set this up as if the new media doesn't get the news out quickly to everybody. And everybody doesn't have equal access to all this. Well, I'm sorry. X is free. But, hey, it is what it is. This change is a disservice to every American who deserves to know what their highest elected leader is up to as quickly as possible. Once again, this is ignoring the fact that new media can get their news out there just as fast, folks. Once again, it's like they ignore these people. They don't acknowledge the existence of new media, if you will, or real media. The White House has been fighting in court with the AP after the news service was blocked from covering smaller pool events when it just decided not to change the name of the Gulf of America, or the Gulf of Mexico, to the Gulf of America, as Trump had called for in an executive order. In response to a ruling in the case, the White House instituted a new media policy that lumped the wire services in with print reporters in a rotation for space on Air Force One or Oval Office events. A Reuters reporter accompanied the president when he traveled to Pope Francis's funeral. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt did not return messages seeking comment. And that's all to that one, folks. Told you it was going to be short and sweet and funny as hell. I loved seeing the corporate press whinge about their own blunders, if you will. Like, it's just funny because they are the ones responsible for this. Abso-freaking-lutely. They are the ones that sued the White House. They sued Caroline Leavitt and two other individuals. I forget their names right off the jump. Go back to and watch that video if you want to see it. But they are the ones that sued the White House, essentially, to be forced to be allowed to have access to Air Force One and, the Oval Office and all these other places where Donald Trump may go to cover him. This is you guys' fault, as a matter of fact. Y'all are the ones that now the White House has to let all media outlets that want to cover the president, they have to allow them on. So now they have to be rotated out because we're going to be fair. We're going to be equitable, right? We all about equality around here, right? Right. It's funny. It's fascinating. And I'm loving every single minute of this, y'all. I really am. I'm eating this crap up. But y'all make sure and stay tuned to the channel. We got some interesting legislation dropped by Ted Cruz on my next video, so y'all make sure and stay tuned for that and go check that out. And y'all don't forget to do me that big favor and smash that like button for me. I really, really need y'all's help in smashing that like button, sharing this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be really, really great because YouTube isn't going to recommend my videos how they should recommend my videos, essentially. They only recommend my videos to people that don't pay attention to news or disagree with me politically. So my videos aren't getting spread out where they're supposed to go. So I need you guys to help me share these videos all over the place. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody you know. And also, if you could, right below the video, there's a join button. Click that join button and join the channel. We've got memberships. There's perks. As a matter of fact, I am taking recommendations for perks. If you guys want to join the channel and recommend some sort of perk, whatever it may be, we'll look into it and see what it is. But y'all join the channel. That's another big way to help me out to get this thing rolling and get us off the ground so I can cover the manipulations of the corporate press on a consistent and daily basis. I need y'all's help, y'all. But y'all do me that big favor and let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. I want to hear from you guys. Y'all need to let me know what you think. that's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.